Seems like there's mulligan so far in the setup. We're waiting to get this game started.
Yep.
It's going to be a good one.
And as we look at our players, you can see NICCOLO, his accomplishment lists this tournament. I mean, he is absolutely making a name for himself today at this event and going down in the history books with the Gyarados VMAX. And look at this. On Alexander's side, a very similar list of accomplishments. Not only are we seeing two very unique decks, we're seeing two less experienced, less well-known players really pushing forward into this event.
Indeed, I think, I'm not sure if I recall, I know it's Alexander's first regional tournament. It might be NICCOLO's as well, which is very, very surprising.
Yeah, not 100% sure. I mean, we get those accomplishments from the players themselves. We back check them as well with our systems, and that's what we have is this tournament for both of these players. We do see prize cards now going out. Just one Archeops for Alexander. Oh, and the Gyarados VMAX in the prizes. Might not be seeing it this game.
Indeed, I think the biggest story here from the prizes is, or are the stadium cards. The Mesagoza being prized for Alexander could prove a little detrimental in trying to counter that early path to a peak. And NICCOLO prizing that path to a peak could lead to perhaps having to V-Star for it instead of naturally having it. He does play 4 copies of it to maximize the chances of having it on turn 2 when it is the most disruptive. And here we go. We're going to get started with our game. It seems like NICCOLO is the one to start us off.
Yes, let's hear some noise for both of our finalists. This game is underway, and it looks like Alexander is kicking things off. Lugia V in the active spot, going up against the Arceus V from NICCOLO. Now, as a Lugia V star player, he's got the bare minimum already. Lugia V in the active, we started that, and Ultra Ball to discard at least one Archeops, it looks like. What do you want to try to establish when you at least have this start to your setup, whenever you're anticipating a potential judge on NICCOLO's end?
Definitely get that Arceus in the discard pile already. Make sure that you accomplish that. And we see Alexander eyeing the Luminion already, which is, I think, very smart if you know that there's going to be a lot of path to a peak coming into play. Preemptively getting that supporter is quite important. Now, the path to a peak would stop the incoming Lugia V-Star Starbirth. However, it's a win-win. If Alexander doesn't counter the path to a peak, then that means they're not using Starbirth, so you've delayed them. And if they do counter the path to a peak, that means you will have access to your Starbirth. But the threat of Lugia V-Star on the Arceus V cannot be underestimated.
Looks like a second Lugia V hitting the bench as well. An energy prepped on the active could also help Alexander get out of a potential sticky situation with a Read the Wind. Never really what you want to do on turn 2, but prepping for the worst case scenario. Now, we kick things over to NICCOLO. Gets that Bidoof down on the bench. Of course, Bibarel, extremely important for his deck. That's how he draws cards. That's how he continues to hit the pieces that he needs. And we also see that Hisuian Heavy Ball being played immediately. Looking at all 6 of those prize cards, will be able to take any basic Pokemon that he sees there, add it to his hand, and it does look like Arceus V will be the choice. Heavy Ball taking the place of that Arceus.
Almost a blessing in disguise, that Arceus V, as it allows NICCOLO to establish a second Arceus V in case the active does go down. And when going second, that's very important, establish another Arceus V, and probably that very crucial energy attachment dedicated on the bench, because the active Arceus, you don't know exactly what your opponent will do. They are holding the Luminion.
Yeah, this hand does not look very good from NICCOLO. There's an energy to attach to one of these Arceus, and then I think Serena, the only supporter able to be played. It's been a while since I've seen a Serena in a Pokemon TCG deck. What do you think of this?
I know, there's definitely diminishing returns for Serena, right? We're getting new Pokemon EXs, but no more Vs. So the versatility of having the ghosting option as well as the draw option is less and less appealing. But so far, like right now, you're definitely grateful that it's actually the Serena instead of a Boss's Orders.
So we do see NICCOLO benching that Slaking V, an attacker that definitely could come up in this game. It costs a massive 4 energy to attack, but can deal 260 damage. Only 3 cards drawn from the Serena. And there's just really not much going on in this hand.
Nothing useful drawn, completely dead hand at this point in time. And yeah, a defensive escape rope. Into Slacking, it does have 230 HP, which means it's out of range of getting KO'd by Lugia V-Star. And now it's on Alexander to make something happen here and take advantage of this slower-ish start.
Alexander is going to immediately play down that Luminion, searched out on the previous turn with the Ultra Ball, and Professor Burnett being brought to the front of the deck immediately. An excellent supporter choice for these Lugia V-Star decks, where what you want to do is get a pair of Archeops into the discard pile, get yourself that Lugia V-Star set up, and use Summoning Star, resurrect them, bring them back, and get those Primal Turbos rolling so you can get tons of extra special energy cards into play.
Indeed. With this play, I fully expect Alexander to already be holding the Lugia V-Star in hand. I'm not sure if I saw it, but I would imagine it is there. And this accomplishes the number 2 goal, right? Number 1 goal, get the Lugia V. Number 2, get your Archeops going, and then you're good to go.
Now, with this play, Alexander does have a pretty weak hand, but I think it's a worthwhile play. You know, you're getting your board fully set up. You don't have any other supporters really moving forward. There does look like there is a boss's orders in the hand, but no Ionos or researches to keep getting through the deck. But I think getting the board set up was most important for Alexander. You agree?
Oh, certainly, certainly. Now, if in a different situation, if the escape rope had not been played and there was an extra energy in hand, maybe it would have been worth it to go boss, hunt down the Arceus V whilst establishing only one Arceus only, because you really delay your opponent's setup. But with that escape rope, I think this is pretty good. You're accomplishing what you want to do. Turn to Lugia V-Star with double Arceus. You'll figure out the rest later.
4 energies being added to this Lugia V-Star, ready to begin with the Tempest Dive. No powerful colorless energy in the standard format any longer, so 220 is going to be the cap here. Slaking V having that 230 hit points will hang around for a little bit longer. Like you mentioned for NICCOLO, it was a defensive play, but still, for Alexander, getting the first hit, excellent.
Now, so far, Alexander would not have any way to know that NICCOLO's hand is really bad, so we're going to have to rely on this top deck to really make a game, and it's not. It's just a vengeful punch, so very underwhelming turn here by NICCOLO. Could Sharon scare the slacking? There we go. Pretty decent play, and then with the V-Guard, we are now completely safe from a KO from Lugia V-Star, but not from a potential weird year V. So we'll have to see if that factors into play. It will have to be top decked, but hey, it could happen.
This ends up being decent for NICCOLO, obviously not as good as you would have hoped. No turn to Arceus V-Star to get rolling, but the Sharon's Care basically erases Alexander's previous turn, and you can get a bunch of extra energy cards into play with this Trinity Charge. Now, a bit of a question, where are these energy cards going? And it does look like it is Arceus V. Would it ever be tempting to power up the slacking?
It would be, just based on the 230 HP. No way to know if there's a boss incoming or not. I like the energy split, not fully committing to one or the other. But yeah, so far, Alexander doing what he needs to do. NICCOLO barely surviving and making the most out of the cards in his hand, which is always what you want to do. But definitely, if it was up to him, this would not be what he would be doing right now. You'd want to delay with Path to B. You'd want to have your B-Barrel set up, Arceus, drawing cards, all of that good stuff.
We are back over to Alexander's turn, using a Primal Turbo at the moment, searching through the deck, doing a little bit of prize checking as well, I would imagine. Seeing maybe if that Luxray is hanging around, that Reversal Energy, those kind of key one-of cards that definitely could come up. Though I do have to say, Alexander is more than likely going to be the one that is ahead on prize cards in this position. Where do you want to see these energy cards go down, Pablo? Of course, a couple of Primal Turbos able to be utilized here. And even if you're not using them right now, getting them in play is great for Weird Ear later on.
Definitely great for Weird Ear. I think that's the biggest thing here. I like that gift energy on the Arceus, means if there is ever a boss KO on that, at least you get the reward of the gift. You also have that pivot potentially already prepared in case your Lugia does go down. But at this point, yeah, I don't see Lugia going down anytime soon.
And a boss's orders will get Alexander ahead in this game, bringing up that Arceus V, taking 2 prize cards. The draw for turn for NICCOLO is just a basic water energy, not at all what you hope to see. Definitely things not going according to plan. Is it a power edge angle right now, Pablo?
Probably is. There's nothing else you can do at this point. The V-Guard does keep you safe, and do want to point out something interesting. We did see in top 4, Alexander tried to attack with only 3 energy because they were hitting under a Lugia, and now we see the energy hidden right here. So a little bit clearer playfield, I think, would benefit both us as viewers and also himself. But we'll have to see. Right now you're in commanding position. You already took 2 prizes. You're about to damage the Arceus. The Sharon Scare has already been utilized. We'll have to see if NICCOLO can ever come back from this. It's not looking great.
I do believe that Alexander has Professor's Research in hand. Sure enough, that will be played. Discarding the hand to draw 7 fresh new cards. More plays, more options available to work with. Do we have the Weird Deer V utilized at this point? It doesn't look like it. I don't see the nest ball, nothing like that.
No great draws here to utilize the Weird Deer. I feel like if you're Alexander, you just want to get more ahead with such a weak board. You definitely happily commit all your energies onto that, but no way to search for it. So just some damage, which still is great. Yeah, Alexander could not be in a better position at this point, I don't think.
190 damage from that Tempest Dive again, thanks to the reduction of the V-Guard energy. Now the draw for turn for NICCOLO. Can he find something to keep him in this game? Okay, not too bad. A Judge can be utilized. That will not only get NICCOLO some fresh cards to work with, but also disrupt Alexander after playing that research. Both players now shuffling their hands into the deck, drawing 4 cards apiece. NICCOLO certainly looking for an Arceus V-Star.
Now, if he does find the Arceus V-Star, 200 damage, minus 30 from the V-Guard is 10 short from knocking out the Lugia V-Star. And that's where the Vengeful Punch could come in, but you would imagine Alexander would retreat to take the knockout. So
NICCOLO had it in hand last turn, didn't attach it. Oh, is it only when it gets KO'd?
It's only when it gets KO'd, yes.
It's not like a Rocky
Helmet. It's not a Rocky Helmet,
right,
yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that doesn't quite work out the same. So smart from NICCOLO, of course, to hold on to it. Does find Bibarel at least off the first card. Can get a little bit of extra draw power here thanks to those Industrious Incisors. Also has another basic Pokemon to put down. Looks like another Arceus V. I have to wonder how many energy cards are even left in the deck at this point to utilize that Trinity Nova to full effect.
That and also the liability of the 220 HP, right? So I think it's all going to come down to this lacking, somehow becoming the hero and taking a lot of prizes.
3 cards drawn. Is there an Arceus V-Star?
Last card.
Exactly what NICCOLO wanted to see, and now that higher HP Pokemon is in play, not going to be able to take this knockout. And this is 10 damage short, you said, right, Pablo?
Yep.
And that Vengeful Punch being attached, I do believe NICCOLO has a Choice Belt in this list. With this Vengeful Punch being attached, that's not going to be an option to grab off of something like a Starbirth.
Yep, no Starbirth in order to search for that. So, yeah, attaching that could have been, I don't want to call it a mistake because you don't know what you're going to draw, but if you're hoping to draw the best combination of cards, and especially with Arceus V-Star where you can search for anything you want, maybe keep that option open.
You know what NICCOLO could do? Lost Vacuum plus Choice Belt.
He could. That is very true. Those cards are available to him. And it's interesting, we were talking about Serena at the beginning of the game and how there's diminishing returns because there's new EX Pokemon and no more V Pokemon being released. And that applies to V-Guard as well, but V-Guard coming clutch for both players right now in this final match.
Still a strong card. There are still plenty of Pokemon V in the meta, accompanied, of course, by mini Pokemon EX. Any 2 cards available now off of this Starbirth V-Star power. What can NICCOLO find? Is eyeing up the Radiant Greninja. A little bit of extra card draw never seems too bad.
No, I think if you're NICCOLO, you're hoping your opponent attacks into the Vengeful Punch.
Oh, I was about to say, I think he was about to do it. I did see the Choice Belt grabbed, but no, did not get that Lost Vacuum.
No, it's just without the Choice Belt, Slacking can't really do anything about the upcoming Lugia V-Star,
okay,
right?
Saving it for later. Okay.
You can save it for later. Yeah, and that's exactly what we see, the Choice Belt onto the Slacking.
And Path to the Peak comes down, of course, not utilized in the early game to delay the Summoning Star. That was still able to happen turn 2 for Alexander, but it does make things more difficult as far as a Luminous Sign. And NICCOLO, I think, thought that he was getting the knockout here, realizes he's not getting the KO, and it looks like he's decided to concede this game. Is going to be too far behind, and Alexander gets the win here in game 1 of the finals.
I wonder if he had realized, then maybe he would have gone for the Lost Vacuum plus choice build play.
Yeah,
but it seems like he wasn't thinking about this lacking. He just did not realize at that point in time. And the V-Guard coming clutch, like I mentioned, for both players. Allowed the Arceus to survive, allowed the Lugia V-Star to survive. And yeah, now I was left a little bit puzzled by that Greninja grab of the Starburst. Why do you think that was?
Yeah, maybe just making yourself Iono-proof for later on in the game, but to be honest, for NICCOLO, there were a lot of energy cards already in play. Greninja seems really strong early game for this deck. You can help yourself activate Melanie, potentially get a little bit of extra card draw power through that, and also energy acceleration. But early, or into the mid to the late game, it just doesn't feel nearly as worth it. NICCOLO shaking his head. He's got to shake it off. Got to try to center himself and get focused here for this next game.
Yep, on to the next one. Let's make sure that we find one Ultra Ball, one Arceus V-Star. I would have changed things. And now going first as well, which is such a big advantage. I think in this matchup, if you're the Arceus player and you manage a turn 2 Arceus V-Star attack power up with a Judge and a Path to a Peak, that's the dream, right?
Yes.
That's what you're hoping to accomplish. You couldn't do it last time. Let's see if we can accomplish it this time around.
We'll have to see if NICCOLO gets a little bit better of a setup here in game number 1. We did see, of course, that Choice Belt being prepped on the bench. The Path to the Peak was going to be massive, but unfortunately does not take the KO with this Trinity Nova.
Yeah, those V-Guards coming in clutch. Both players doing the math, double checking, and 100 plus 170, 10 off from Lugia V-Stars to 180 HP. Now,
Math checks out pretty nicely there. We do see these prize cards being played out to Judge in NICCOLO's prizes. That's probably one of the more important supporters in this entire deck, and he only plays 3. He only has 1 to work with.
only 1, which if you play in turn 2, that's good enough, right? And we've spoken about bare minimums. Lugia V-Star wants a bare minimum of a Lugia V down. Arceus V-Star decks want the Arceus V plus an energy. You do that, you've accomplished half the game, right? Half the early game. That's all you need.
NICCOLO does not have much on this first turn, leads with that Arceus V from the opening hand, attaches an energy to it, and just a pass. Might seem unassuming, but I do believe I saw an Ultra Ball hiding away in this hand. Over on Alexander's side, I think I see 4 energy cards in this hand. The start of the Snorlax, the bench of the Mew EX. I do not see a Lugia V or a way to get one.
Nope, that Mew EX immediately getting benched probably speaks volumes of how bad the hand is, unfortunately. I don't even like this attachment here. I would have preferred it on the Mew so that maybe you can copy Arceus V, deal that damage whilst you establish the Lugia, because last game, NICCOLO wasn't able to set up at all before it was too late, but this time, energy attached, we're seeing the Ultra Ball. You have to expect, you have to prepare for the worst, right? And the worst here is turn 2 Arceus V-Star.
In which we see is able to happen here. Ultra Ball discarding the basic water energy and the Gyarados VMAX. Sad to see that hit the discard pile, I do have to say, but maybe we'll see it in a potential game 3, as it does seem like NICCOLO is going to get to a very quick advantage in this one. Have to imagine this Ultra Ball will get the Arceus V-Star, and then Starbirth can be utilized to get any 2 cards. What are the things we're expecting NICCOLO to try to set up this turn? He has so many plays available to him.
He does, especially usually you want that turn 2 Judge path, right? But when you have the confirmation, you don't know exactly what Alexander has in his hand, but he definitely doesn't have a supporter. He definitely doesn't have a way to get Lugia. So you keep that hand. Yeah, now it's just all about setup. Maybe a research and a double turbo. That's good enough. Yeah, find more resources, take that prize card, and just hope for a path. Maybe even just double turbo path. You don't need much else. There's no threat whatsoever.
Definitely, I think you still want to try to establish something else on the bench. Just help to push your advantage as much as possible. Double turbo, obviously, the first grab here. The problem with research as well is you do have to discard that 1 choice belt. We talked about how that can be really important in this matchup. And while NICCOLO is going to get pretty far ahead to start things off here, he's definitely not going to be guaranteed to win by any means. There is a lot of Pokemon TCG still to be played. Chooses not to go for any supporter cards and instead opts for an Arceus V to place directly onto the bench. And we are going to see that Trinity Nova coming through, taking the knockout on the Snorlax. Didn't even have a gift energy to attach on Alexander's end that could have given him a little bit of extra card draw. And it's going to be 3 energies accelerated. Alexander needs a top deck to even stay in this game. He's drawing for turn. What is this going to be, Pablo? It's a gift energy, and I think that's
useful.
it.
That's game. We're going to game 3, I think.
Yep, we're going to game 3. What is
happening in this finals match? What is going on? I don't want to correct myself. There's actually no Professor's Research in Niccolo's deck, so that's you cannot grab Professor's Research when it doesn't exist. But yeah, the Arceus V was a good grab you want to play. I also love the Choice Belt on the bench. I think that makes sure that you have a potential threat on a Lugia V if that does get benched, which is very important. You already built up an advantage. You know your opponent is at least a turn behind, possibly more, and then we go hunting for that Lugia V on the bench. You are able to get even more ahead. So very nice attachment to the bench on that Choice Belt. Didn't matter at all. We're going to game 3, and hopefully we get to play a full game this time around.
This right here is peak Pokemon TCG. Some clunky games in the finals. And it comes down to a game 3. 2 new faces to the scene. 2 players who have not yet cemented themselves in this competitive scene, who have not yet made a name for themselves, have certainly done so by getting to this point, but who will come away the champion? NICCOLO with the Gyarados VMAX, Arceus V-Star, or will it be Lugia V-Star flying high, once again winning another regional championships?
I always like to describe the recipe for success in the Pokemon trading card game is having good decision making, having a good deck, and also sprinkling a little bit of luck on the side to make sure that you are able to do well with both of those things. And we are fortunately or unfortunately seeing some of that luck factor majorly into who's going to take that
more
big
than a
10K.
sprinkling here,
More than a sprinkle. I was
Pablo.
trying to be kind, but more than a sprinkle, that's for sure.
Yeah, bad start for NICCOLO in game 1. Even worse start for Alexander in game 2. We're going to see a fair game 3 for sure, right?
Sure, that's how the universe balances itself, right? That's exactly what we're going to see.
Arceus, please. Let's see these opening hands for the players. Any mulligans on either end? It does look like NICCOLO is lacking a basic Pokemon at this time.
It's lacking a basic Pokemon.
Okay. I did set that one up for you, didn't I?
You did, yes. And it's rare for me to catch those spots, I will say, but I have to catch this one.
You're catching up, buddy. You're catching up.
There you go.
And now Alexander, of course, needing to set out the prize cards before drawing that mulligan.
Yep.
A mistake we would hate to see happen.
We do not want
again.
to see any sort of issue that would
I want a fair,
merit,
good game here for game 3 of the finals, Pablo. Let's make it
penalties,
happen.
no penalties. Maximum warnings, but no penalties, please.
7 cards now for NICCOLO. Of course, if you draw your opening hand of 7, you do not find a basic Pokemon. You have to send that hand back into the deck, shuffle up, and draw a new one. You always have to start the game with a basic. Prize cards now going out. The Weird Ear V in the prizes for Alexander definitely is worth noting. A couple of energy cards up at the top as well could be awkward. And 2 Path to the Peak on NICCOLO's end.
Oh yeah, the 2 Path to Peaks. I mean, you only need 1. You need to delay that 1 Summoning Star. Afterwards, it's less impactful. You do stop Luminion. But it could be, it could be. It reduces the odds of you drawing into it, and then maybe after Starbirth, and then maybe you're having to search for other things at that point in time. But we're going to start with this Capturing Aroma. Decent hand, but full of energies, I think.
A couple of research and a bunch of energy cards, which is going to make things pretty awkward for Alexander if he gets to keep this hand. Of course, NICCOLO plays plenty of Disruption supporters. That's reasonably likely what we will see on this next turn. There is a Tails flip on that Capturing Aroma. Kind of a silly card. I think the first time people read it, nobody really expected it to be that good. But as the meta kind of became known and as it was realized Lugia V-Star was going to be as good as it became, people kind of realized Capturing Aroma is the way to go. You flip a coin. If heads, you get an evolution. If tails, you get a basic. And of course, Alexander finds a basic in this spot. It's another Lugia V that can come down to the bench if he would like, and does have a bunch of energy cards to attach. We could Jet Energy the benched Lugia to the active just for fun, get a little movement out there. But a V-Guard Energy, I think that makes a little more sense.
I'm interested as to why was it on the bench? Why not on the active? You protect.
Well, with Jet Energy in the hand, right?
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. I think. That's
you can just attach to the active, anyways, right? But yeah, that's fair. spreading out the energy potentially, or just using the effect. Um, accomplish the bare minimum, which is bench a Lugia V, actually bench 2, and NICCOLO is accomplishing also the bare minimum with the Arceus plus energy. Now, big decision here to use Arena or do you Iono. You don't know what's in your opponent's hand, and Alexander's going to be very grateful for that Iono, I think.
I think so. I mean, he did at least have a research, so was able to do something on the next turn, but would have been a lot of energy, a lot of resources going down to the discard pile. Both of these players now, with this Iono played on NICCOLO's end, will shuffle their hands, place them on the bottom of the deck, and they each draw a card for their remaining prize cards. First turn of the game, both players have 6 prize cards, so it acts like a pretty good shuffle draw supporter. At this point, later in the game, though, can be extremely powerful disruption. Nest Ball on NICCOLO's end has plenty of basic Pokemon to choose from. Already committed the energy, so we're not going to see any sort of Trinity Charge plays, but Radiant Greninja is being brought to the front immediately.
Now that Vengeful Punch in the active, those 4 damage counters, I'm not sure if they would be impactful in case the Lugia V-Star did manage the KO, 240 HP remaining. It's not a number that Arceus easily reaches at all, so
makes it so you don't need the choice belt on the slacking later,
makes
maybe?
Makes it so you don't need the choice belt, that is true. Helps a little bit with the B card, perhaps. And another important card to note is NICCOLO is playing Defiance Band, which is not a common card we see paired, and it adds 30, just like Choice Band, but to any Pokemon.
Yeah, only, though, when you are behind on prize cards. And in a game like this, NICCOLO is definitely going to be the one who is more than likely behind. I guess it does depend, of course, on Alexander's hand. We do see concealed cards. Does draw a couple, but does miss out on the path to the peak. That would have been a nice card to see to try to slow Alexander down as much as possible. Of course, let's remember 2 of them are in NICCOLO's prizes. Now, Alexander kicks his turn off. No Archeops in the discard pile just yet, but an Ultra Ball being played does discard 1. Doesn't look like there is a second one. This could, though, lead to the Lumineon using that Luminous sign to find out Professor Burnett.
Indeed, I do believe there is a Lugia V-Star in hand, so going Burnett, you've done your setup, right? And imagine if that Iono had not been played, then you research into this, you get to do something, right? But then getting the 2 Archeops in the discard pile off of our research is never an easy thing. It's not easy to accomplish it, and it's down to chance as well. And now it's guaranteed, which is really, really nice.
It does come at a cost. Of course, you are putting that 170 HP Lumineon V in play. It's pretty squishy, it's a liability, and it easily goes down to an Arceus V-Star. NICCOLO will certainly be looking to capitalize on those prize cards as he can, but a trade that Alexander is ready to make. Using that Burnett, discarding the 2 Archeops, and Lugia V-Star is waiting in the hand.
Indeed, so the full setup accomplished for Alexander, and I think NICCOLO will do the full setup as well, but the big card missing is definitely the path to a peak. That path to a peak not being in play really helped Alexander, and I think that was the big thing NICCOLO needed to count on to really have an edge in this match.
Primal Turbo finding 2 special energies will accelerate them to the active Pokemon. Looks like Therapeutic and Gift being some of the choices. Another Primal Turbo being used. You definitely have to be mindful of which energies you're pulling out of the deck. Reversal Energy, probably not going to be useful in this game, so it does make sense to pull that out now. Jet Energy, of course, can be very powerful later on, but you do play 4 copies of the card.
Yeah, so you can definitely spare 1, and the most important thing is making sure that you do not attach a double turbo energy. Most of the time you want to make it more efficient to attack with Lugia V-Star, but that damage reduction is super important to not have at this point in time. So a little bit more costly, but completely worth it, and Alexander will get ahead in this Game 3 of the finals.
And that is going to be the knockout on Alexander's end, sending that Arceus V to the discard pile. Of course, Vengeful Punch gets a little bit of revenge, putting 40 damage onto the Lugia V-Star. NICCOLO starts his turn, sending up this Arceus, evolving into Bibarel right away. Does have the Melanie supporter. Hey, that Greninja discarding the energy last turn ends up being pretty strong. And we're going to see 3 cards drawn off of this Melanie.
There's the Arceus V-Star off the Ultra Ball, which is great. And we see a Nest Ball as well. We could see Gyarados V set up this turn as there is the Gyarados V Max in hand. We could also be seeing the Slacking V as well, which could be important. But the V-Card energy being attached in this Lugia, which would probably be the backup attacker for Alexander after the active one goes down, that could play a major role as the V-Guard does protect from slacking V.
And let's remember as well, with this nest ball being played, that Gyarados V is in the prize cards. Even though V-Star, or V-Max, excuse me, is in the hand, ready to evolve on the next turn, it's just not a play NICCOLO is able to go for. And maybe all the way back to turn 1, this is what Alexander was thinking by putting that V-Guard energy onto the benched Lugia V instead of putting it onto the active, recognizing, hey, this is going to be more valuable later in the game. I know that this active Lugia V-Star is more than likely going to go down. Let me make sure this one can stick around a little bit longer. We do see Radiant Greninja ditching that double turbo energy. Of course, you do not have to discard only the basic energies. You can discard special energies as well. And Arceus V-Star was found. Does not even have to use the Ultra Ball for it. That is excellent.
Indeed, and now Sharon Scare is probably the most important card in NICCOLO's hand right now. You are behind in prize cards, and in order to overturn that, you need to prevent your opponent from taking prizes himself whilst you take yours. So that Sharon Scare could be very, very impactful, which is very well combined with this Arceus V that did get benched off of that nest ball. We might see this lacking towards the end of the match, but for now, this Sharon Scare play could be very impactful. However, there is always the threat of boss's orders on the benched Arceus V.
Yeah, NICCOLO, of course, sequencing very well here. Has not used his V-Star power yet. Wants to go with the Industrious Incisors first, see what he draws, and then commit his V-Star power. Very smart sequencing, which is what you would expect from someone who has made it to this point in the tournament. Does find yet another nest ball. Maybe could hold on to that for slacking V plays later in the game. Will actually use it now. We could even see that come into play. That is a Pokemon that is safe from a boss's orders KO, though this Arceus V on the bench is not. So maybe that's something NICCOLO would want to do, but looks like it will just be burned out of the hand.
Indeed. Now, I cannot emphasize enough how sad I am that we're not going to see Gyarados VMAX probably in this match. That makes me very, very sad, but we're going to see the Starbirth, and there is an energy already in hand. Doing 180 or 200 doesn't really change the maths right here. Even with a Defiance Band or a Choice Belt, you're 10 damage off from the knockout once again.
Where, oh where is Galarian Zigzagoon? Ooh, yeah, here we go. Look at this off of the Starbirth. Maybe we will see the Gyarados VMAX.
Did I positively jinx this by saying we're not going to see it and therefore we are going to see it?
Yeah, Hisuian Heavy Ball, of course, could fetch that Pokemon out of the prize cards. Any 2 cards able to be grabbed here for NICCOLO. Does find the V-Guard energy as another choice. That is going to be pretty nice. Maybe give a little bit more survivability to these Pokemon. Would be great if he could get the V-Guard energy on the benched Arceus V, but of course, not possible. Needs to attach to the active Arceus.
Indeed, that V-Guard energy could be crucial, which, if it's so crucial on a bench Pokemon, maybe that wasn't the right energy to grab right now, although grabbing another basic energy means you have less and less targets for Trinity Nova, so good choices here. We'll see where whether the V-Guard or the double turbo gets attached. Perhaps the V-Guard is important to protect from a possible weirdier play, which Alexander probably drew off of the prizes he took. So there's a V-Guard attached to the active. We did have Melanie as the other attachment, and we're going to see the 200 damage. And I'm guessing the energy goes to the Gyarados.
Yeah, we'll have to see. And of course, Alexander does have boss's orders options, right, to KO either the 2 benched Pokemon. Could even try to ignore this active Arceus until maybe it comes up later. We'll see which route he decides to go and which route NICCOLO goes. Looks like it is going to be an energy spread option.
Now there is 60 damage missing on the active. There was 40 damage previous, and now we're hitting for 200 damage. Is that the misprinted Arceus V-Star that has 120 instead? Yeah, 60 damage. There we go. There's the fix. And I think if you're Alexander, you see that Gyarados, I think you just want to take it out. You just don't want to deal with the Gyarados VMAX. You have the
that thing's got way too much HP.
Exactly, yeah. And you're ahead, so the Luxray is probably not an option anymore. The question is there a boss?
It does look like there are not 1, but 2 boss's orders in Alexander's hand currently, which could be good for back-to-back plays.
Yeah.
Let's see which one he wants to chase here. Gyarados or Arceus, or do you just hit with the active? You probably have to 2-hit KO a Pokemon V-Star or V-Max at some point in this game. Something else Alexander is probably considering as it stands now. Primal Turbo searching the deck. Does eye up a Gift Energy and a Double Turbo. This could go down to the other Lugia V on the bench, waiting for a chance to become a V-Star.
Indeed, sitting pretty with that V-Guard. That V-Guard playing a huge role in this matchup, and Yeah, that protection is just so important, and for both players, even that V-Guard on the active Arceus V-Star probably protecting from the Weird as well, but seems like we're not even going to deal with the active at this point in
Well,
time.
and honestly, too, for Alexander, if you do Boss's Orders KO one of these 2-prize Pokemon, you can just set up to win with Weirdeer on the next turn. No matter what your opponent has active, you can get enough energy onto the Weirdeer V, thanks to its ability and its attack, of course. Will be dealing more than enough damage. Double Turbo in hand can spread these energies out so your opponent can't really take too many of them out of play at once. Of course, more than likely, NICCOLO will be KOing the active, and Boss's Orders says, yeah, I'm not dealing with Gyarados VMAX. Get that thing up here. Alexander, I think, is anti-fun here in this finals match.
So I did jinx the fact that we're not going to see Gyarados VMAX prize, and you can see how important, like, we're seeing Pokemon survive by 10 HP. We're seeing Gyarados V get knocked out, whereas if it had that 230 HP, which now seems to be like that big number that a lot of Pokemon would love to have in order to survive most of the attacks in the current metagame.
NICCOLO has quite the mountain to climb at this point, and his hand is really not that strong. We're going to see a Bibarel for 1, I think. The Double Turbo was attached to the bench. Could have been used with a Radiant Greninja play. You could burn a couple of these cards. You could switch into the Arceus V and retreat the Double Turbo energy off that you just attached in the future, and I think that is going to be the play. Of course, you could also just find another Arceus V-Star, which would work, and we will see that path come down, meaning Greninja no longer an option. 3 cards drawn from Bibarel, Industrious, and Sizers. Do we see that Arceus V-Star? Ultra Ball can get you there.
Now, Path to Peak has even more relevance because it does stop the Weirdeer V play.
Yes, of course.
So we do need to find now, other than the Weirdeer, we need to find a counter stadium in order to pull this off.
And something else as well, you know, depending on what else Alexander has to do on the turn, maybe can't put a Collapse Stadium in play because you would be limiting your bench too much if he needs to put a Luminion in play to search for a research or something like that. We'll have to see how things develop. Might only be a pair of outs for Alexander from this position. NICCOLO does find that Arceus V-Star. That's ready to go. We'll see that Trinity Nova taking the KO, taking 2 prizes, giving NICCOLO a chance to fight back in this game. But can we see the Weirdeer come through, deal enough damage to this active Arceus? There is no V-Guard energy on it. And there's even going to be another card or 2 drawn from this gift energy before the Lugia V-Star hits the discard pile.
Indeed. Now, if the Weirdeer V is not accomplished this turn, NICCOLO does have the Sharon Scare and also the second V-Guard. I can't emphasize enough how important it is that NICCOLO found that other copy of V-Guard to be able to rebench the Arceus and attach that to protect it even further.
I think Alexander might literally just have it in hand. The Collapse Stadium, there's the Weirdeer V. As long as there are enough energy cards in the deck, I think he has it right here. Primal Turbo can search right now. There's a bunch of Jet energies, I think, a couple Double Turbo energies. Alexander is going for it. There's a couple onto the bench. Primal Turbo, once again, just got to make sure you do the math. It's a lot to think through with the Double Turbos reducing your damage, but I think there's going to be more than enough energy cards put into play here for this Weirdeer to move to the active spot, Frontier Road, bringing all these other energy cards up to this Pokemon, and Psy Shield Bash getting through the massive 280 hit points of Arceus V-Star. Alexander Flatos is the Sacramento Regional Champion.
GG, 12 energy total. That's 480 damage minus 60, 420 damage in that final turn. What a game we just saw. What a series.
Absolutely incredible. You have to imagine Alexander was feeling great after game 1. And then that mood totally changed when we saw game number 2. Start Snorlax, bench Mew EX, pass, I guess. And then in game number 3, things went very according to plan. Alexander able to get things done. Of course, congratulations and commiserations to NICCOLO. Getting to this point, excellent. A second place finish. He gets himself a bunch of championship points. He's $7,000 richer, which is kind of cool if you ask me.
Very nice, yeah.
And he did it all with Gyarados VMAX by his side.
So not only $7,000, but also cool points added to NICCOLO for sure, at least from my part.